Hi, Jasmine. How you doing? I've got your work up, got your final logo up here. I want to make some comments. And then before doing so, I kind of want to go back to, let me see where, and I went back to week 2 and then to week 3 to take a look at, kind of like the progression. And I think I went back through some of my notes too, and I think my notes are going to make a lot more sense now, perhaps, because the idea here is this, is that, we needed your 3 logos. These logos, you did your sketches for these logos, and I think that's great. And I think that your writing showed that you were indicating some pretty good ideas, but you stopped at the national flower and the national bird, meaning that you didn't describe any of the logos from 2. You just did 1 and 3. You didn't do 2, 4, 5, or 6. So we don't know the meanings behind those, so to speak. The problem there is that suppose that your art director says, okay, we don't want to use this one. Now you have your other choices, but you don't have any meaning associated with, okay? And then we go to week 3, where you have it, I guess narrowed down to 3 different choices. However, they haven't been refined at all. Basically, it looks like you kind of crop those out and presented them as such. So, and again, you talked primarily about the national flower or the national bird. So that kind of leaves us here. And I'm saying that, without really a good, solid, defined meaning, I'm commenting on the visual merits alone, and I don't think that's appropriate for an event of this magnitude. What I'm getting at is this, and for the record, I think that your development of your pictograms has been pretty darn good throughout. So I got no problem with your pictograms. I think this is a good set right here. We'll talk about your new set in a second. Now, I mentioned that this is probably not the best logo to use because it just isn't recognizable at all. Okay, but what you've done though is you've actually used the exact same type. Okay, so it seems, honestly, I'm just going to say it seems like you're trying to parts things together instead of creating a cohesive logo. And I think that's indicative by just grabbing this type and using it on your new logo. Very, very rarely will the same type work for the same mark. That's just not how logo design works. You have to take visual attributes from the logo and choose your type choices from there. Okay. So going back, all right. So again, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, in the long run in design, the whole process is that eventually if your art director shoots down the one that you've laid all your eggs in the same basket, so to speak. If the art director says, no, we can't use this one, you're kind of stuck in the water with no meaning and no real relevant direction. Okay? So, that's exactly what happened. Remember last week, I said, I don't think this is recognizable. I don't think it's going to work as a logo. So you changed it. The problem is when you changed it, you never described what this is. I know it's supposed to be a national bird, but basically what you've done is you've digitized one of your sketches and then grabbed the same type. Okay, so this has, and subsequently, honestly, this looks like 3 different things. It doesn't look like a logo that was developed in concert with itself. It just looks like here's this, and here's this. They don't seem to have an association. Okay, now the mark itself, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't know what this is, and I don't think your viewer is going to know what it is. I can tell you what I think it looks like. I think it looks like like a turtle with a fish in its mouth. And I'm sorry to say that, but I have to be realistic here. I don't think this is, it just doesn't resemble, I think, what you're thinking it's going to resemble. I know it's supposed to be the national bird, but I'm seeing a turtle coming out of water with a fish in its mouth. And so you may want to consider that, and just for the merit only of the fact that somebody else is seeing something contrary to what I think you're putting out there. Pictograms, I think the first set was better. I do. I think that the background here is just too busy. Well, what you've done is you've just basically taken a logo and put your pictograms over it and then cropped it out in some organic shape. And I mean, I suppose that's a pretty good approach, as good as any. But the thing is, it's like, you just can't see what's going on here. You don't know what is what. It's just too busy. I think the other pictograms were better. I think that this little two-tone background, using these colors somewhere in here, I think is a better choice than these really super busy backgrounds. Okay, my suggestion is to refine this and give us an idea or show us an image or something so the viewer has an idea. Because right now it's just really unclear. We've spent all this 3 weeks doing all this research, and right now we're kind of left with something that's not specifically clear as to its intent. Okay? As far as the mechanics of the logo go, as I said, I think that this looks like 3 different things that have just been kind of pieced together. I would suggest that the type itself is too large and the rings are too large for the logo itself. The logo would take, let's say the logo takes up a shape of that. Instead of going like this with the type that you've done, see how you've done that? Think about this. Think about the logo being that shape and the type being a little smaller. And then maybe even the logo, the rings underneath that, even just a little smaller. So at least we have some semblance of hierarchy through this little composition as opposed to presenting things, you know, so that they appear as though they're 3 separate elements as opposed to one cohesive unit. Okay? Hope I'm making sense. I'm here. If you want to, you know, if you'd like to redo the logo or maybe run something by me, questions, comments, if you have anything at all. Because right now I'm just really commenting on visual merits. I just don't even know what we're looking at here. So I think that points to a little bit of underdevelopment in the written and developmental stage of the project. Okay? Any questions at all, feel free to get with me, Jasmine. Thank you so much.